the people of sake actually brought me into sake.
Back in 1988, this place was actually in Ginza on the main drag.
At first it was kind of soy sauce, it was miso.
To the point where it actually changed my life.
New Year's Day 1989.
Not just sake as a beverage, but all the culture and history.
Thank you for tuning in another episode of Sake on Air, the world's third podcast dedicated to expanding the dialogue surrounding Japanese iconic beverages, sake, shochu, and awamori, of course. My name is Sébastien Lemoine, one of the regular hosts, and today I'm joined by the great technician that put the mics together. I'm talking about Frank Walter. Hello, Frank.
Hi, Sebastian.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, it was a bit of a trip to come here, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, it took me over an hour, like an hour and a half, I think.
I mean, a bit less for me, but I was lucky with my connections. But it was, again, definitely worth it. And today we'll be exploring a number of different topics or subjects in relation with sake. But I think as a general theme, I would want maybe to call that finding happiness with sake. But there will be some practical tips as well. And we have two great people with us, I mean, whose sake love doesn't need to be demonstrated. And I'm very happy that they are behind the mic this time because they tend to be a little bit discreet about their love for sake as well. But they've been doing great things to promote the beverage and the culture. So I'm talking about Dave and Miwa. Hello.
Hello, and
Hello.
and thanks a lot for schlepping down and doing this.
It's a pleasure. I mean, I meant to do it. I mean, both of you have been extremely active members of the Taste with the Toji community, and yeah, I mean, it just shows your commitment to the beverage. One day, I mean, this beautiful woman named Sake came up to me and said, "Do you love me?" And I said, "I want to know what that's like." And she said, "Get in the car." Do you know who wrote that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was as a metaphor for a couple of things in my life. But my first encounter with sake was I was introduced to sake by James Bond. So I was reading all the James Bond books in order, and I got to You Only Live Twice, which is where he goes to Japan, and he's drinking with the head of the Japanese Secret Service, Tanaka-san, and they're drinking sake at precisely 38 degrees. In the movies, of course, they use Fahrenheit, but in the book, they use centigrade. So I was like, the reason why I was interested in it, I was 14 years old at the time, but like many European families, our parents started us drinking wine when we were 12, so we would have one glass of wine at dinner. And so I started learning about wine, and that kind of evolved too into sometimes having, like, say, Calvados after dinner with coffee and learning how that was made. And so when the sake thing came up, I was like, okay, I know a place that sells sake, but I never had it, so I was very interested. So I knew people that would buy it for me, so I went down and bought a bottle. All I know, the bottle was green. At that time, I was baking since I was like 8 or 9 years old. So I knew I wanted to warm it up. And I warmed it up correctly as I boiled some water and then took it off and put the bottle in there, and then I drank some of it. Frankly, it wasn't that great. All I remember is it tasted kind of vinegary, but I think, like, maybe the romantic part of me thought that maybe in my heart there was something better out there. And so that sort of got me started. And I was living actually on the East Coast at the time. And then when I moved to San Francisco, then I started eating Japanese food and drinking the hot sake that everybody knows.
So it was not the first love. She was sour.
She was a little sour. Yeah, she was a little sour.
Oh, was she?
She didn't make a good first impression.
Oh, okay.
I think that's
just checking.
like most true loves, they don't really make a good impression on each other. But so around 1990, I had my first Ginjo style sake from Wakatake. So it was the Wakatake Junmai Daiginjo in the square green bottle from Shizuoka. And, it's kind of it's a little bit of irony there that Miwa's from Shizuoka as well. So I found this at a high-end supermarket in San Francisco, and I was like, wow, okay, this is it right here. Then after that, I just started looking for sake anywhere I could find it.
And you found?
The thing that was the sort of the kickstart is I didn't know anything about sake, but I knew I was really falling in love with it. So between 1990 and maybe 2003, I was just drinking it on my own. And the person I was with, my partner at the time, she didn't drink at all, so I was drinking by myself. So this thing was all solo. There was a Texas-style barbecue place that moved around the corner from our house. And I went down there the opening night, and I walked in, and they had like this little, you could smell the barbecue, and it's smoked barbecue. There's a little wooden box, 3 bottles of sake in there, and I went, oh my God, you serve sake with this? Oh, that's amazing. I was so happy. I started talking to the owner, and one of the sake he had there was the Dewa Sansan, the Jumai Ginjo. And I had that, and I was like, oh, and I started becoming very good friends with him. He was like my first sake buddy. And I wouldn't go down there and really get that much barbecue, but I would go down there and drink. And a couple of times he let me drink with his distributor, and I got to try different stuff. And then one day I was in there, and I knew everybody that worked in there. And one of the guys said, hey, Dave. I said, what? You know there's a sake store over in Hayes Valley, right? I said, what? I found out about True Sake, America's first sake store. So I went down there looking for this Dewa Sansan, right? Well, that's where I met Miwa.
Oh.
She was the manager. I was the Ichiban customer. So to say that, I was already in the car at that point. So things were already changing for me quite a bit.
So are you jealous sometimes of this deep love for sake?
Well, I guess Dewa Sansan was the one, huh?
Dewa Sansan, I would have to say, is maybe one of my oldest friends. I mean, this is too, but that like spoke to me. That spoke to me.
Yeah, our listeners should know that Dave is wearing a Wakatake T-shirt. So are you wearing it like every day or? Almost?
No, I just happened to put this on today. I didn't even think I'd be talking about this.
Yeah.
So
No, it's good.
that's just what happened.
What about your discovery of sake, Miwa? What was your path?
Accident. So I was not in a sake business or beverage, and I was in a food business, but prior to that, I was in a design business. Long story short, I was working as a cook and doing food stuff, and went into True Sake one day to ask about what would take to do like a little tasting for a group of restaurateurs and women chefs. And I happened to make a business card that time, and I made it, So when I was leaving the True Sake, I just said to a gentleman who was working there, it was not Bo Timken, the owner, but I said, oh, by the way, if you need a little help, please, let me know. And indeed, they needed another person. And I went in next day, and I got a job. But till then, I was not really into sake. Well, no, but I was wondering about it. And rather than drinking sake, I was actually collecting a lot of drinking vessels, ochokos and glasses, and I just loved them. And I remember San Francisco North Beach sushi. I'm like, I should have some sake. I just want to try. And open up the menu, and there was like listing of 10 sakes, and I didn't know. I have no idea. Till then, I was drinking like a Momokawa Nigori Pearl made in Oregon in a blue bottle for like $9. And I thought, I should try something. And I don't know where to start, right? Looking at the prefectures, there's a Shizuoka sake named Wakatake, Demon Slayer. So this is what I'm going to have. And that was my first introduction to like a Junmai Daiginjo. And I had a sip. And I'm like, really tasty. But that was years before actually went into true sake. So there's a couple years in between.
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Eh.
Seriously. I've never heard that
So,
before.
but it was accident in the sense that I just happened to be at the true sake, happened to have a business card that I just made, and just learning to promote yourself kind of thing. So okay, here's my business card, and that was the discovery. It kind of came in steps, I guess.
Serendipity.
It's,
But
that seems to be a continuing theme when you get in the car.
But I never thought learning about sake was this fun. I never studied that hard before.
Before we get back to sake as a theme, I have a couple of other questions to ask you about your past or the way you learned about sake. One, I think you wrote one day, or you said one day, that you came to Japan because of sake, and I don't know if you have a comment to make on that. And my second question is, could you share with us your amazing track record with sake, the sake sommelier competition as well?
Not too many people know about that. At least I never thought.
I should have read that.
So, I always wanted to leave America. I didn't want to keep living in America. I love San Francisco, but I was ready to go. And Miwa and I talked about it, and she had mentioned that she wanted to reconnect with her culture. I said, cool, all right, it's sake heaven, so let's go. When we first moved here, we have an old friend of ours, Yoshizaki-san, who he makes labels. He lives in Niigata, and we'd known him for years and years and years. And the day after we moved here, he drove this car down to sell to us, and we bought our car the day after we moved here. And it was a business car for him. He'd been trying to get rid of it, couldn't get it. But at that same time, he had told us in previous visits about this amazing sake shop that is one of our go-to places, Koyama Shoten. It's in Tama, and I've never seen a sake shop that's bigger and has more labels in it. So moving here for me is basically, it's the golden age of sake right now. The best sake that's ever been made is being made right now. The science has never been better. The ingredients have never been better. And actually, internationally, it's more well known than it's ever been. And there's more varieties. And there's more different types of sake being made. So being able to be in Japan for that, to me, it's like being right next to the fire and keeping your hands warm. I'm not swimming in a small pond there. I'm swimming in the ocean, and for me, that's the amazing thing about living here.
You didn't have any particular plan then. You wanted to move here.
No, not really. We just we wanted to move to Japan, and that's what we did. And
We didn't talk a lot about the kikizake competition. I'm laughing for a reason.
The sake tasting competition in I think it was 2018. I went the
You
first
tried
one.
like 2-3 times.
I went twice, and the first one, it was the first time it had been open to gaijin. So they had 27 spots, and so I signed up. I thought, oh, this would be great. I get to go drink a bunch of sake and hang out all day. And the competition itself is drinking 7 different types of sake at room temperature in one room, and then going into another room and matching them up. And you have about 1 minute per sake to do that. A couple of great things happened at that. One of them is I met Rumiko Obata, sort of became friends with her, and I met some other brewers as well. And I met this small group of people from all over, and I'm still friends with them today. So I went in with no expectation, However, I'd done a couple blind tastings in America where we had, I think, 17 sake, and I picked 3 of them out that I knew what they were. Of course, one of them was Dewa Sansai. Just kind of cool.
Because we drink so much of it.
So I also met Hiromi there too. She works for JSS, and she does a lot of international work. And so my first time there, I got second place. I was like, cool, all right, cool. I'll have to come back next year. So the next year, I went back, and I met some new people. Rumiko comes over, and she's like, you got this, you're gonna. And so I was like, this is like setting yourself up for a slip and fall and right on your butt with the cameras rolling, So I went in and did my thing and just started tasting. And the first room, there's a lot of cameras and videos and news people. And in the second room, it's quiet. So you're there on your own. So I did the thing and came out. And then when there's a tie, I guess I should preface this by saying there is 94 people there, Japan. So there's 2 people from each prefecture that have gone through a competition, won those competitions, and so this is like the World Series of sake drinking, right? So then you have the gaijin that are just there. And so, just get to go in, on the coattails of everybody else. So they announced the ties. In the event of a tie, they do a playoff. So there was a tie on the Japanese side, I think, with 3 people, and then there was 2 women that tied on the gaijin side, and everybody's like, "Wow, okay, they must got first and second place, right?" So I'm wondering who got third. I was like looking around, and I think I texted you and said I messed it up.
We were just chatting, just enjoying the buffet or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I messed it all up. I said, I don't think I did well at all. And Rumiko's like, how did you do? And I go, I think I messed up. And she was smiling, and then she went, kind of frowned. I was like, oh, okay, well, sorry, sorry. Expectations were so high, and I came in so low. But then I was talking to somebody, and we were drinking, and then they announced the third place. And the third place was one of the women, and the second place was the other woman. And then they called my name, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I went up there, and then they announced that I had a perfect score, which was like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. So I think maybe my love for it and a little bit of luck sort of carried me through. But
the reason I'm laughing, I was laughing earlier. So I was working at my mom's, restaurant, and he, I didn't do well. Okay, that was his text. And hours went by, and I finally came home, and Dave, well, you tried. So I'm thinking he didn't win anything, or it didn't really matter. So
they give you like a little, certificate. You won first place. And I said, they gave me this JSS calendar though. This is
and I knew it was no calendar because
so she opens it up. She opens it up and goes, oh my God, in slow motion. She goes, oh my God. And she takes the thing and throws it up in the air. And then she comes over, and then I see my dog, and I go, no! And the dog goes over, and she grabs me like this. I can't get away. And the dog takes it in his mouth. So it's got these bite marks in it right there. Which was cool with me. I don't hold on to those things.
That was Einstein.
But it was Einstein, our dog. And she just did that and threw it. It was like, okay. And that's... in a way, it's like I don't have any like certifications or anything like that. I'm not, I've just been around it. But that thing there was, you know what that was? At that point, I'd loved sake for a long time, but it was probably the first time that sake left me back.
Oh,
well, that's amazing. I mean, it just shows, your talent in analyzing sake and remembering it, and everything you write about sake is, it's really great. It looks great to me, and I enjoy so much what you write about sake. So, hope one day you put everything together. And
thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say.
So, my next question, and that's for to both of you, is what is sake to you then? How do you define sake?
define it. For me, because I'm coming from sort of food background, for me, sake is like like food as opposed to beverages, and you know, and I love sake because it has a savory component, and but also sake is something, at least for me, that reminds me of, you know, my childhood, to sceneries, to people, situations. Also a beverage that actually make me think about things. I mean, sake itself too, but yeah, sake. I cannot quite define it, but it's like a food.
Because earlier you said that when you started to work at True Sake, you had no knowledge or experience of sake, but you worked as a cook, and you've been working for a cook for a few years. So I suppose you were using sake in your kitchen, weren't you?
That's a great question. So for me, originally sake was something that my mother's father used to drink, and he used to have ishobi on the side of his, you know, chairs, and just stinky, you know, and just not good sake. And my dad, who is Shanghainese, and he was a cook for quite a long time, and he used nihonshu all the time for his cooking, making sauce to steaming, you know, fish and things like that. So for me, sake, nihonshu was something that was more like an ingredient, or that stinky smelling thing that grandpa used to drink. But that's all changed, you know, of course, drinking wakatake.
And Dewa Sansan.
Dewa Sansan, and more and more, yeah.
What about you, Dave?
So there's a couple things. One, so if you drink a sake that doesn't speak to you, doesn't agree with you, you kind of know why right away. But if you drink a glass of sake, you go, wow, you have a wow moment, and you go, wow, this is amazing. We've done that before. We both take a sip at the same time, both go, wow, okay. And then you try to figure out, why do I love this so much? So I'm that guy that I can't figure that out quickly. And for me, it was a process that took time. I'd have to go through 2 ishobins to try to figure out why, you know?
That's
literally.
true.
And so I'd never call it a beverage. For me, it's way beyond that. And I don't like using the word. I never use the word. You know, everybody knows this, but sake is a living thing. And that's the first part. The other part that has stuck with me is Miwa was a judge at the Joy of Sake. There was an appraisal in 2012, so we went to Hawaii. She went there first. I followed her, and there was one of the other judges from.
I think it was a 12-11.
No, it was 2012. I know it was. One of the other judges was from Yamagata, and he worked for the prefecture, and his job was to replicate recipes that other brewers had where something had gone wrong. And he would replicate the recipe and then give them advice on what to do to improve things. And so he made sake all the time. And I kept on, this is another thing I've been working on for years and years. All these sake competitions, appraisals, from a Japanese perspective, are all about starting at zero and then finding flaws with them. And this has messed with me a little bit. And so we were this guy just hung out with us and he liked us. So I asked him, we were having breakfast after having maybe 3 hours of sleep or something. And I said, you know, if you had to judge, we're all here because we love sake, right? If you had to judge the sake on its merits instead of its flaws, how would you judge it? And he thought there for a minute. And then he said something to me that stuck with me for the rest of my life. He goes, I would think about the faces of the people that make it. And from then on, every time I drink sake, that's what I think about. So it's not just you're drinking sake. It's like there's a message in the bottle every time.
And when he said that, it was kind of interesting. At the competition judging, you know, judges are also being judged. And some people does it really fast. Some people it's taking forever, like me. But the professor, Shigaki-san, he was there towards, you know, he was like the last 3. Everyone's done. But when he said the following morning that he's, tried to, see the face of the people who made the sake, I can kind of see why he was taking time to kind of, connect with, as opposed to judging sake.
Hold on a minute, Dave, because I have another question for you. But I mean, since you're on the mic, I have to ask you something. I didn't know that you actually were a judge at Joy of Sake competition. How did you end up there? I mean, where did you polish your skills, your sake tasting skills, or didn't you?
Well, I need to thank Bo Tim again, the owner of True
Sure.
Sake, and the opportunity came up. The judging part is all new to me, and I'm sure there's a whole system of, judging or this framework. And it was first time experience, and I didn't know what to expect, and it was not easy. And you see a clock ticking too, and everyone's done, like, oh, they're gone, sitting around. But I can see all the seasoned judges. I learned a few things from them, and one Japanese judge was interesting. Among the hundreds, there's about 400 or 500 sakes lined up. And where do you start? But he said he usually just go, pick a random table and just take a selection of like 7.
Mm-hmm.
And he approached that. And then in his mind, sometimes he does something. So this is kind of represent the whole room.
Mm-hmm.
But he had this mini scale.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of interesting system.
But
He
you also
just-
keep in mind the judges are being judged too.
Yes.
And this was something I didn't realize at the beginning. And Chris Johnson, who's a judge there every year, that's when I first met him, and started asking him some questions about it. And there's a lot of people out there judging sake that have never done it before. And I think it's something you start to learn on the fly, and then you develop your own method.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everybody has a different methodology, and way everybody warmed up was different, she told me. So she's looking at everybody going, swimming in deep water all of a sudden.
But for me, my system is when I taste it, I'm a visual person, so I think of sceneries of things or colors.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a number,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I kind of remember what I like about this sake. And the ones that it's not that I don't like, but there's something that is just odd also remain in the memory vividly, which is kind of funny because the sake that doesn't taste perfect, has a quirkiness or kind of oddness to it, actually is the one kind of remember the most, which is kind of funny thing. Yeah, but I do remember of the hundreds that I tasted, there are 2 sake that are just stuck in my mind, and one was Born. It was Tokubetsu Junmai, and the other one was a Chokai-san. These 2 somehow just vividly.
So it means you gave them the best grade?
That I do not remember. I'm sure I did, but I tasted the sake after the competition was over too, and I just do remember. I wanted to go back to, especially the Born. Like, it's a Junmai, Tokubetsu Junmai, just tasted so perfect. I mean, just perfect.
Dave, I mean, one day you wrote, it viscerally connects to the spiritual side. Or you wrote things like, sake is part art, craftsmanship, science, and hard work. But I believe there's another sort of metaphysical side of it that is obvious to us all, but it is a silent partner. Would you kindly elaborate a little?
So there's a few layers about that. One is sake is a living thing, and the art part of it is it's the heart that the brewers put into the sake, and when people will ask me, I get asked this all the time, what's your favorite sake? I said, okay, I don't have a favorite sake, but and my job is not to give you the best sake or to really educate you at all. I will tell them that what I do have is a bunch of friends. Some of them are old friends, some of them are new friends. Some of them are friends you got to warm up to. Some of them you got to, be a little tepid with, be cool with. But and these friends are not the same friends I had a year ago, and they're not the same friends I'm going to have a year from now. There'll be some that'll stick around for a while and all that. But my real job is to introduce you to my friends and hope you make friends too. And then after that, if they want to learn something, then they'll come and ask me, and that's the time. The other part of it is that when I'm drinking sake and people are writing sake notes and they're saying, oh, it tastes like pineapple and cherry fizz and all this other stuff, I don't think about that. And this goes back to a little bit about the faces of the people that make it. I think about sake as a conversation. What is the sake saying to me? Where does the sake want to take me? One of the one of the examples I would use is you sip the sake and it sort of has mineral tones. That's about the water. But what it tastes like is one of those really, really smooth rocks. It's about a centimeter below a brook on a hot day, and you can just kind of smell it from there. And when you're a little kid, you always take the rock and you lick it, because that's how you figure stuff out when you're a little kid. And that taste when you lick it when you're a little kid, that's what that sake tastes like. And when I drink that sake, that's where it takes me. And so I think about experiences. I think about the spirit of it. So there's definitely a spirit that happens with sake. And that spirit connects all of us. That spirit connected all of us to come here. And, they say sake is the drink of the gods, right? Well, what better way to get to know the gods than to hang out and drink sake with them? So I think for most people that really love sake, it's personal. It's personal for the people that make it, and it's personal for the people that care enough about it that they want other people to share in this kind of joy in a bottle.
Just to add, water, the spirit. I think the water carries that spirit in a way. And I remember when I was a true sake, just explaining, how sake is made and, what kind of water does a brewer use? Well, some brewers are very lucky to have this beautiful water that, melting snow. But that snow melted, and came, go through the sort of underground filtrations and get to the kura, that snow, that water actually was probably from decades and decades ago, right? 50 years, 60 years snow maybe? More actually. And what's that mean? I'm drinking, say, this sake right now, but the water actually had a history.
I think about the water as the conscience of the sake.
Yeah, and this
and
notion
the
of time.
like the heart of it. That's how I think about it. So it's definitely the spirit. It's definitely, it's part of the land, but it's also like all of the other elements that go into sake. And that there's there are 4 elements of earth, fire, water, and air, but then there's also wind that people don't talk about. I think the wind part might be the metaphysical part, because you have the winds of change, you have the winds of time, you have a brewery like Miho-san's, she's near the ocean. That wind brings all of that bacteria into her brewery. Everybody that makes any kind of Yamahai or Kimoto, it's a product of environments that's close by and also far away. It's what comes in and out of the kura. It's what the kura breathes in and breathes out. So all of those things, that's the silent partner.
During the pandemic, you organized, I don't know how many you did, a couple of workshops at Chef's, which is your mother's restaurant, is that right? And I found the theme, unfortunately I could not participate at that time, but the theme was, I remember as being really interesting. I think it was finding your sake voice. I mean, how did it go?
I was asked to do something like this because this is part of the TWTT group, and I was asked because all these people love sake. They've been drinking sake for a long time, but around people who are ultra certified, they felt maybe slightly intimidated to talk about it and didn't really, maybe felt self-conscious about it. And people kind of knew that I have my own vocabulary for it. And this is something I learned in art school. If you have something that you're really, really, really passionate about, like music or whatever, you should have a vocabulary so you can talk to people about it. Otherwise, do you really know anything about it if you don't have a vocabulary? So I decided to put on a workshop, and not so much, it was like a workshop. And I think we had 10 or 12 people sign up. And the idea is to find your own vocabulary for it. And so I picked out 5 sake, and Miwa has this great sheet that she made like 16 years ago that you can write down all the stats and all of the information that the sake gives you. And of course, I did homework on all the sake, so I knew everything about it.
That was when I was at the True Sake.
Yeah, because we would take notes.
Homework.
So it's like teaching people how to take notes, and a lot of people don't know how to do that. They do it, but they don't know how. And at the store, we would do that all the time, figuring out. I would be able to participate, figure out which sakes they wanted to keep and which they didn't. So we would write out like what kind of glassware we were using, temperature of the sake, and then all of one person would read all the facts, and we'd pass that around. So we kind of followed the same format, but I gave some handouts out and about different ideas that they could use. And I said, I don't want to know about taste. I want to know about everything else. So I said, I made a list, metaphors and experiences, things that it reminds you of. I said, we're here because we love sake, so make it personal. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks about it, and really don't worry about don't care. Just dance like you don't care. And so I would do five completely different sake, and 4 of them we would go through and talk about the stats and how it's made and all that stuff, so that there's like a narrative for each sake, right? And one of the things that happens when you have a narrative with it, people are influenced by it right away. It's like, this. So I had a Hanjozo that was a Tokubetsu Hanjozo, very elegant. It was Tokubetsu. It was milled to 55%, but it was brewed like a ginjo style, so at low temp and slowly, and it's beautiful sake. And so we go through blah 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 blah, and you got the blah blah blah, and then there's people going around. Oh yeah, I taste the tenran, the smell and all that, and it gets around I think to Anat, and Anat goes, "This tastes like a ginjo," and I went, "Boom, that's what we're talking about. This tastes like a ginjo. It's exactly what it is." So it's even though it's a Hanjozo, they called it a Hanjozo, but she tasted that, and I was like, that's a learning moment for everybody, and everybody has a different palate. And the other thing is the group together, like we would do that. Everybody would taste the format. We would just taste. You got to shut up during that time. Just take notes. When everybody's done taking notes, then we'll talk. So I'd pick one person to start. And maybe you taste a little bit of something, or you get a little hint of it, but it's more pronounced for somebody else. By the time you get around 8, 9, 10 people, you've got a very good idea of what this sake is about. The other reason why I'm doing it this way is because you learn that there's a narrative with the sake and that you're influenced by it. So the last one's blind. So, and I go, I want everybody to guess and see anything, where it's from, what it's made from, blah, 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 blah. So everybody had something different to say, and it was like everybody was, to try to figure out what it was, everybody was waist high, deep in a dark cave with cold water with a flashlight that doesn't really work. They're trying to hit the maker. So it was a very interesting sake. The sake was milled to 90%. It was made with black koji. It came from Kikawa Shuzo in Izihara. Very elegant, very nice, like 90's the new 70. But so those kinds of things, you learn things in layers. And then when it's personal, that's what that was the main thing. You love sake, make whatever you say personal and don't think about it. Just whatever comes to your mind first.
Yeah, and then what came out of that workshop was, narrative about the sake, but also the people's story, their backgrounds, and this sake remind me of that. We didn't know anything about that person, and I think that was the most interesting part, because everyone kind of, tasting notes is tasting notes, but going beyond that and getting, Sebastian sort of feeling what you feel about this sake and hearing that and sharing.
Yeah, it gets back to what you were saying earlier about connecting people, because suddenly people open up, and you start to hear things about them that you didn't know, and that's magic indeed. I mean, quite often when you talk about food and sake pairing, let's say you have a dish, it's done, it's ready, and you're thinking, what's the best sake for it? But as a cook, do you do the opposite? Like I select my sake, I love it. I have to prepare something to pair with. That would be a good match, or a good which could be a good conversation.
Well, I
with
never thought about that.
Have you done the exercise of just I would say improvising the food or the recipe based on the sake?
We've talked about that before, mostly in San Fran.
Yeah, mostly in San Fran, but food, sake. I mean, especially if I know the sake, I have tasted before, then it's easy for me to whip up. Okay, have a little citrus. So dewa-san-san, let's use the dewa-san-san as an example. It has a sort of citrus nose to begin with, kind of crisp, and for me, like a vegetable and seafood just come to my mind, and with a citrus note, and then I just make something.
With the sake, it's like instead of saying I want to pair this with that, it's like I want to try it with that.
Yeah, exactly.
What's it going to do? And what's it going to do if we warm it up?
I think that's an excellent point. It's not like yes or no, but it's what.
It's like, come on down.
Yeah, and also discovering what doesn't work is actually sometimes funny. I remember particular food or sake, but they just do not go well. And that's a learning moment.
That doesn't happen that
often. But yeah.
All right. I mean, in the interest of time, I'd like to get to my last topic for the day, which was my original plan when I contacted you, Dave, I must say, was to talk about your sake project. I mean, or at least what your main sake project now, possibly, which is Dozo Sake Kitchen. This may have been a dream, a long time dream for you. And I would like, both of you, Miwa and Dave, to share a bit about that dream and why this became Dozo Sake Kitchen, and take us a little bit through the challenges of it, how you built it, and some, how can I say, some practical aspects of running a sake bar, sake-centric restaurant in a town like Hachioji. And by the way, because I did a little bit of research before coming, Hachioji is not exactly a small town. I mean, you have about 600,000 people living here, so which
it's the biggest little city in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, it would make it the third largest in France, the fourth largest in the UK, the fifth largest in Australia, and maybe number 30 in the US, something like Baltimore or Vegas.
I always think of Hachioji as a little town.
So take us through Dozo Sake Kitchen.
It was a process, because once the pandemic was over, Miwa was very much itching to get going again. And
but we need to go way back in San Francisco days. I do even have a sketchbooks with a Dozo Sake Kitchen, like a little logo things. And this is almost, 20 years ago? Well, cannot be. But anyway.
It's around 2008, 2009.
So like over 15 years ago, we're like, it'd be nice to have a sake bar, and just, again, drinking, chatting. And he's like, how about the Dozo, the Japanese word, please. And so we actually tried to create a business plan back then. But it did not happen. But it happened in Japan. I was working for my mom in Shinjuku for years since we got here. But just need to say thank you to all the brewers that we have met, and they treat us so wonderfully when we visit them in Japan. And a way of thanking, I felt it needed a place.
What you're hearing here is Dave getting us some glasses and opening a sake bottle for us.
So I just enjoy this aroma.
give that to
Hi,
Frank.
hi.
Yeah, so it took you a while to open your place here, and even I have this dream of opening something about sake, and I'm sure amongst our listeners you have people who think about doing something with sake beyond just drinking it and possibly doing some education about it. So what are the key? What are you telling them, and why should they? What should they think about, and what's been the trigger for you to actually make it happen?
Well, trigger, I think love is one part, but also discipline and just...
Discipline.
Yeah, and discipline. So before Dozo Sake Kitchen here, we were, before COVID, we were running sort of sake bar from a cafe using their after hours, evening hours. And technically, we were kind of hire people to run that evening portion of the cafe operation. So to get there, I took 3 different business startup courses offered by City of Hachioji. Having a concept that is clear is key, and how you are different from the others, and not only offering the sake as a style of almost at the philosophical level, why is your sake bar, is different, and what's your message, and articulating that on a paper in an elevator pitch style in less than 30 words is very difficult, but it's a great exercise. But to get there, you had to practice, and practice and talk to people like, oh, my bar is da 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 da. But that's what I meant by discipline, in a sense that I have to kind of willing to dig in deeper, but also crunching numbers and doing the research. Of course, this is not easy. So, but also finding a spot, that's the tough one. At least in Hachioji, it took us 3 years, kind of looking.
The economic economic climate here is that most landlords are not looking for long-term tenants. They're looking just to get somebody in there and turn it over, because they get all this help money up front, first and last, and all that. So they can hold on to a place empty for a year or 2 years and wait for somebody to come in.
But this place, because they have much bigger kitchen, we just put Dozo Sake Kitchen at the end.
So this place is the new place, because you were running that bar, is that the correct word? From a coffee at night time, and then pandemic hits, and so you had to restart, and you now run this new place called Dozo Sake Kitchen. So you added the kitchen to it.
But I think for this project, this Dozo Sake Kitchen, I think we approached quite organically. I think Dozo Sake, the pre-COVID, I was like this, need to do this, X, Y, Z, business plan, marketing, da, da, da. I don't know why. I think just we kind of approached really organically.
But also we had the experience of running the other place too, so we used a lot of the same methodologies that we had for the other place for here.
What are the main challenges today that you've been open for about a year? Is that right? About a year. Sure. The challenges, the practical challenges.
Practical challenges is that we talked a little bit earlier about how people's habits have changed. And so I think evolving with that and trying to figure out how to get more consistency, because we're not in it's not like a high traffic downtown area like Tokyo or Yokohama or something. And our bread and butter before, which it is for most bars, is you have your regulars there. But people have their habits changing. It helps probably us to have probably more events, to be more event centric. I personally love the space, and I think we can do a couple of other things with it that we talked about before. One of them was Miwa likes to do cooking classes and teach people how to do stuff like that. And just our circumstances this year has just been like, you got so many different things you got to take care of, and they're all kind of tedious, small detail stuff, but stuff you have to do.
What you were saying to me before we recorded, so that's why I'm going to say it in front of the mic, is that what has changed is working habits. I guess it's especially true in a city like Hachioji, which is far from Tokyo, well, not that close to Tokyo, and there is an important part of the population that travels to Tokyo every day to work there, or to Yokohama every day to work there. And so you were telling me that before the pandemic, when they were going to the office, they would maybe more easily stop by on their way back home and have a drink before going home. And this is happening less today.
It's happening less today because a lot of people were working from home, and so they don't go out. And it's been like when we opened up, we had a lot of our old customers come back, but we've lacked the consistency of having the same amount of people come here every day. So one day we can be full, and the next day one person shows up. So, but part of it too, I mean, it's less than a year. In February, it'll be a year. And so, I mean, this is like any other normal kind of business. It takes time to plant seeds and get things to root up. And
how many sake references are you carrying? Do you have a target in mind, or it really depends? Is it?
So, I mean, for choosing sake, different kinds of sake? Or?
Yeah, I mean, what's your sake lineup?
So I try to keep, first thing I try to do is I think about balance between, maybe a sweeter sake, a dry sake, and balance in between. That being said, I mean, I'm not very strict about all this. A lot of times, one of the great things about having a sake bar, you can try new stuff all the time. So that's what I'm always trying to find new stuff. When it's Akishu time, I try to get as many as I can. So I mean,
Like 20?
oh no,
30?
no! I'll go through 70.
No, but any given time.
But a
we
given
have
time, we hold about 20 or 25, and stuff that we like, stuff maybe we want to revisit that we haven't had for a long time. It's you get to be a little indulgent, because you can try a lot of different stuff, and that's really one of the beauties of having it, is you get to be indulgent. So there's no format. It's really about like, we go out, okay, maybe we need to buy a few dry sake and stuff, but you're going to find new stuff on the way. But we have about 8 shops or 9 shops we go to, and sometimes we get stuff from the breweries. And we have people that we know there. Most of them are family owned, and they have relationships with certain breweries. So you can just go, what do you got that's new?
Another thing that I noticed when I entered here was that you display various copies of the Sake Today magazine. So you have like today maybe about a dozen copies that are available to your visitors. How do you use them? Because I love this story.
So we have them here just to help spread the sake word, but they're great to have here as a reference. So like, I just poured everybody this Fukucho Hatsu Shibori made with Hatanso. And then I can tell them, it's made by a very famous Toji, Miho Imada, and we're friends with her, and been friends with her for a long time. And here's a picture of her right here. And they go, whoa! They go, oh! You get that. And then what it does is it adds a little layer to a story that they can see and touch, and then the narrative for me at that point is this kind of a 3D narrative. It's not just I'm telling you it's great, it's this or that. It allows people to get a kind of a clearer picture and see the faces of the people that make it. So we have like Rumiko Saki in here. Yeah, we got a magazine, one of the articles in there about Rumiko, and also Rumiko's been here a couple times. I could show a picture of Rumiko hanging out with us, and they're like, "That's her, yeah, that's her." So all of those things is kind of brings things a little closer, you know.
It connects to what you were saying earlier as well. You see, or what this Yamagata person was saying earlier, was you see through sake the faces of the people. When you know them, that's easier.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been talking, and I heard this sake standing just under my nose. It's been there for a few minutes.
Please,
I
let's have a little kampai.
these great aromas or fragrance coming, green fragrance coming out of it. So maybe we should apply a little bit what you explained a bit earlier about Nihonshu Go, or the language of Nihonshu.
Let's have a little kampai, Frank.
Kampai.
Sorry, Miwa.
I enjoy the aroma.
So what is it telling you today?
Well, this sake to me is, I've already written about this, but what I wrote is it tastes like the label, how the label looks. For me, it's midori. It's green. It's like taking a walk in the woods after it's a little bit humid and it's just had a little bit of a rain. That's kind of like what it reminds me of. This for me is comfort sake. So this is made with the hatanso, and also, I mean, you gotta love Miho-san. She's brilliant, and all of her sakes are really great, and they all, even though they all speak the same language, they all talk very, very differently. What do you think, Frank?
What do I think of this sake?
Yeah.
This sake for me is a little bit different from your perspective. It reminds me more of like, well, partially because the aroma and the flavor is very banana-y, kind of an unripe banana. It reminds me of like a beach banana.
Ooh, I could see that.
Like you're at the beach. The banana has been in the sun. It's a little too warm, maybe a little mushy, but it's really nice, and plus that with like cold water.
I like it. She's not that far away from the ocean.
Yeah, that was that would have been my location as well. I mean, my parents' house is in front of the sea in Normandy, and so we got all these wind bringing iodine and aromas from the sea, and I do have a little bit of that in here. The seaweeds, the salinity, of
salt air.
Yeah, salt air. I have that as well.
I get that. Wow, that's a good call, Frank.
Thank you.
That's cool. I like it. It's this is what's great, is like you get these feelings yourself, and you know that's it sits that way with you, but then all of a sudden it's like rolling the window down in the car, and you get to hear what other people say. Well, okay, yeah, it's there. All of that is there.
Yeah.
But this is what else I would add, is that her kura is in a very, very special place. So she's in Akitsu, and
Hiroshima.
Yeah, Hiroshima, Higashi Hiroshima. But so I did a monitor tour not so long ago, and the person running the monitor tour is the great-great-grandson of Sanzaburo Miura, who is the father of Ginjo sake. He's the one that developed the technique for making Ginjo-style sake with soft water. His house can be seen from the back of her kura, and there's a museum. And we found out when we were there last time, it's for sale now. And also he gave her brewery the name Fukucho. So she's like on, that's that. Okay, if that isn't metaphysical, like that's magic. That's a magic place right there. And so she's worked it, and all of the credit and all of the accolades she gets are well deserved. And there's other women in sake that deserve it as well. Women in sake to me that's a very special thing.
Absolutely. Miwa, one question about one of the question I have is food. I mean, you it's hard to run a sake bar without providing any food. So how did you think about it? How did you approach that? And what are you proposing to your guests or clients?
How? Well, some of the dishes that are really from my, dad's kind of recipe or back, when I was growing up,
Okay.
and I'm half Chinese, so sauteing items are kind of easy. But also, I just like vegetables too, so I like the people to sauteing is a great way of offering vegetable dishes. But also, I think it's just some of the dishes are something that we used to make back in San France. To something just came up with. To this is kind of funny. This is just natto hua hua yaki. It's just like natto pancake. And pre-COVID, when we were at the other location, we used to call it natto pancake, and nobody ordered it. But this is some item that actually I had it in izakaya in New York 20-some years ago. And I tried to recreate it. It was kind of fun things. But in terms of designing...
Hold on, you need to go back up. When she started calling it foie foie, everybody ordered it.
It's kind of funny. So the naming of a dish is
Yeah.
also a key. But also because of the sake, we carry a variety of different style of sake. So the food, of course, need to have something soy based, something salt based, something like sweet, savory. Need to have little acidic components somewhere. So for me, like mapping out all these flavor components, elements, and create dishes on the fly, or something that we used to make, or I used to make, or my dad used to make. And but also temperature. I think about temperature dishes too, because throughout the season you want something crisp and cold, of course, and of course something kind of warm. But also colors too.
Colors.
Yeah, colors. I mean, just lacking food with the red. But yeah, we tend to be kind of
But
vegetable heavy.
we're also throwing stuff out there that people have never had before. So
Of own creation,
And-
your own
and-
creation.
yeah, some of them are recipes that we both developed, but like we chili and cornbread. Nobody here has ever had cornbread before, so just making stuff like that. To cheese puffs too. That people have never had that before. It's like a gougere, right? And usually they're small and sort of like a appetizer. But I kind of developed other recipe where I'm making like it's almost like a cheese puff like this, and they're like, wow.
How do you define your place? I mean, when people ask you, "Oh, you're running a sake-centric place," how do you define it? I mean, you should know because you've worked on it. You took special courses to be able to do that.
Well, the
So-
way that I would explain it is that it's a very informal surrounding, like more like a living room where you can just come in, enjoy some homemade food, and that's probably the biggest comment we get. Everything tastes homemade, and enjoy sake that a collection of sake that you're probably not going to get anywhere else. When people come here and they'll start talking to each other, So it's not like the tunnel vision that you get in a lot of other places.
But those who wants to kind of open their own sake bar and think about the food, to be honest, I cannot, compete with some of the izakaya. No way, they get you right down there. They have great grilled food. Hachioji has also a lot of great yakitori places and washok places. And, we are not the izakaya. So,
we're not trying to compete with them. And in fact, I think that it's more complementing them.
Excellent. Well, Frank, I don't know what you think, but it might be time to wrap up. There's been so much sake love around the table today from our two guests.
It's been great. It's been really, really interesting.
Again, thank you so much, Dave and Miwa, for your time and for your openness in sharing your love for the drink. And I hope that both of you, I mean, Dave, I knew Miwa, I knew less about your ability to really talk about your love for sake, and I hope you will continue to do that and maybe write something for us one day.
Thank you both for coming down.
Yeah,
And
thank you so
talking
much.
about, asking me about things that nobody really asked me about. And this is all the stuff that's in my backyard. And
Wonderful questions.
and just like a wonderful perspective. I guess the thing that I take away from that is that when I meet someone and I know they really love sake, I know a lot about them already, even if I don't know them that well, and I know a lot about their value system. And I don't easily trust people in the real world, but in the sake world, I fall in love fast.
Thank you all again, and I think that will do it for this episode of Sake on Air. And please take a moment to review and rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you enjoy the show. Feel free to send your questions and comments to questions@SakeOnAir or Sake on Air on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find our shows and more on YouTube channel. So we'll be back with more Sake on Air in a couple of weeks. And until then, kampai.
Kampai!
Kampai.
This episode has been made possible with the generous support of the Japan Sake and Shochu Makers Association. Sake on Air is produced by Export Japan, and our team is Justin Potts, Miho Ota, Cindy Bissig, Sebastian Lemoine, John Gottner, Chris Hughes, Rebecca Wilson-Lai, Marie Nagata, Christopher Pellegrini, Arlene Lyons, Shuso Imada, and Frank Walter.